Hello, Jobo, Alan Fry, and welcome to episode 4 of AuroraCast. It is very, very good to finally have you on here, mate. Thank you for spending a couple of hours with me this evening.
Oh,
How
thanks
are
for the
you, mate?
invite. Yeah, I'm good, man. Yeah, good. Work's pretty crazy. Got some amazing projects going on. Life's fun. Yeah, doing well, man. How about yourself?
Doing well, mate. Sort of similar to you, work busy and craziness, and just sort of catching up with people, and hence starting the podcast again. And I just thought you came to mind, man, because of the last episode I just did was talking about sort of Dolby Atmos and surround sound, and I was sitting there and I edited it together a couple of beers, and I thought, Joe, what? I wonder what Joe. I wonder whether Joe would come on, right? Because to give some sort of backstory, I mean, what you started in IT, essentially, like what home IT, right?
Yeah, like residential computer repairs. Yeah, that was the limit of it. That was all I did when I think I started that when I was 14. From work experience at school, started doing weekends, started doing uh, school holidays, and then ended up bailing from college and went straight into full time on I think 120 quid a week.
Sounds about right.
Uh, yeah, yeah, and then the rest is history. That
It's
was
crazy.
well,
It's
yeah.
about 14 because I was the same. I was working for anyone who knows Brighton, where we were living. This is going back. Yeah, well, so yes, if you were, I was 14 when I started working in a shop called Rag Freak. Yeah, the old Rag Freak on Cranbourne Street, which is the for any of you guys who ever go to Brighton, it's the building that's like the Union Jack, which is
Yeah.
now like a crepe shop. Like a crepe shop or something, man.
uh,
It's like selling crepes.
I don't know, man. I so rarely go into
Yeah.
Brighton these days. I just can't
It's
stand it. I
crazy.
think I'm getting a bit
Get
old, mate.
getting old, mate.
Yeah.
But that was what we did, man. I mean, I didn't go to college. I went straight into working. It was latterly I went and did all my studies. But so yeah, so I was down there with the boys doing basically being a reprobate, selling sort of heavy metal memorabilia. And Joe's the other side of town, sort of fixing computers and being a reprobate in the evenings with us.
Yeah. That's how it went. You guys are a little bit older than me, I think.
Yeah, I'm 34 now.
Yeah, I'm 33.
So I was the younger set. A lot of the boys were older than
Yeah, that
me,
was
5 years
it.
older than me. So yeah, so
Marcus
you
and
so
Denzel.
I mean, so what happened, mate? Did that? Because this is the thing I'm interested in. Is like that last episode from people who've been following the podcast. I was kind of talking about the evolution of multimedia, right?
Yeah,
And we were talking briefly in the preamble to the show about how you know multimedia really, I feel, in the masses started with computers, right? People could get like a
yeah,
fairly cheap like Cambridge Soundworks 5.1 system, right?
yeah,
you know
yeah,
so how's that because you almost moved from the just trying to sort of see the journey as you almost moved from sort of like in-store repairs and
yeah.
selling, I suppose, of equipment to now out installing what I gather is fully fledged essentially cinema systems in people's houses.
Yeah, so where it went for us, I mean, I was 14. I was working for these guys that were, I mean, they weren't that legit, but I was 14. I had no idea. And then it got taken over by this guy, and he really wanted to expand it. And we started doing media center computers, so people could have their photos, their videos. You could watch TV, record TV with a TV guide, but through a Windows computer. Like there was a full platform for it, Windows Media Center. It's quite old now. So we started doing that, and then we started doing it with LCD screens and plasmas back then, with maybe a Logitech 5.1 surround sound, and we'd build. It would be a instead of being a desktop, it would be like a rack mount, and it would run from there, and then we just started expanding further than that. Started getting better speaker brands, started getting better TVs. Doing our research, started getting bigger media rooms. And I remember when we got our first 3 grand job and we were bouncing off the walls, and I'm working for companies that are doing like £1 million plus projects now. So it's wild looking back at it. And then yeah, so the boss at the time split the companies apart, and he kept the computer repairs, and then he started doing the home cinema, and home automation. So controlling your entire home from one thing, but with a focus on cinemas. So I did that, worked there for a good few years, and then lost it through COVID, got made redundant, went and worked in a tool shop for a little bit, and then got headhunted by another guy that was local, and he's got some incredible projects and incredible clients, and it's a whole nother level to anything I could have ever dreamed. It was what I wanted my old company to become, but it just never got there. And nearly 20 years in it, it wasn't going anywhere. But this new company is fantastic, because they've really locked on to the right amplification, the right speakers, the right setting, sound absorption, etc. And Dolby Atmos is rife, and it's absolutely killing it.
I mean, so do you think because I kind of was aware of, obviously I was lucky in a sense, I forget this, that my dad was very techie. I mean, I suppose in the height of his career, he was doing this, he was doing video conferencing before Skype and any of that existed. You needed a satellite system to actually even beam in that broadband. The ISDN was about as quick as you could get. And he was always quite kind of into that sort of techie stuff. And so, I mean, I've gone on about this so many times, but I've still got, in fact, I think you might better just see it. They're still on down there. That sort of orange light down the corner there.
Yeah.
That's an old Yamaha ProLogic 1 surround system with a KEF center speaker on top of it from like 95. So I've kind of like, I've had to do a bit of trickery in terms of like, I've got to have an AD converter on there with the new TVs, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't like it because this, which is like a cheap £300 Philips television, has got Atmos in the damn thing. And it's almost Atmos. You know what I mean? Like, we'll come into that, man, because a lot of people say that, oh yeah, I've got Dolby Atmos, it's on my phone. I'm like, yeah, you've got an algorithm on your phone. It's kind of which I suppose is what Atmos is, right? But it's still, I've demoed it, right? And it's still with like, I mean, I've got two solids this side. I mean, it's a really bad setup, man, but it sounds pretty, because it's low down. I've got like it's small flat. I've got a bean bag I sit on, so I'm low, right?
Yeah.
So I get my center channel, I get my left, my right, and over here I got a couple of KEFs. So two KEFs. I've got a Jamo sub, a couple of missions.
Oh yeah,
I
mean, Jamo. I haven't had them for years.
Yeah, old school. But my dad, he gave it to me for my 21st.
Yeah, nice.
And I can't bring myself to, I'd love to get a new kind of like Atmos processor, and I've even seen.
I might have one for you, mate.
Oh.
I'll have a look. I'll check the office tomorrow.
Oh, I like the sound of that, man. But I've seen these like almost like these JBL, like soundbar systems where you disconnect the two speakers from the side and they got like a 10-hour battery life and you throw them behind you. Then you got your 0.1 decent sub and then this soundbar, and it's saying that it's basically doing like 914. But I'm like, but how are you doing 914 when you've got a soundbar? Like, how do you find that, man, in terms of the commercial? I gather your installs. What do you think? I suppose because there's multiple questions in this, right? Yeah. Do you think people's understanding of Atmos, like, do people come to you and know exactly what that is?
Most of our clients, not a clue. The old company I worked at, we had a showroom right in the middle of Brighton, and we had a tiny little cinema room in there, but it had a Crix MX30 sound system, which is an absolutely monstrous front array with an infinite baffle going all the way across, and then we had surrounds, surround rears, and surround left and right, and then two height channels as well. But it was in a room that was like 4x3. It was tiny, maybe even 4x2.5 or so. It was pretty small, but it absolutely thumped. But this other company, we take clients to our suppliers where they all have demo rooms. And they have the latest, they have the best, they have the biggest, and it's mind blowing when you see it. I'm a bit desensitized to it now because I've seen so many good cinema rooms that it's hard to impress me, unfortunately. But yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I'm well impressed with them.
100%, and we're seeing it more and more, and I think you're going to see it more and more because from a sound, from a production standpoint, like we've got what Apple have they've rebranded it as Spatial. But it's basically Atmos, and that's in Logic free of charge. Essentially, you just got to update it and you've got it. So we're in a world where essentially if you can mix, you still have to use headphones for it, right? For the binaural processing, but we can now make Atmos sounds just with a pair of headphones.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, I still think, and again, I still feel like, because we're in the early days of this, I still feel like, me personally, I'd want a room. I'd want speakers that are actually placed, because I can't see how am I getting the space of the speakers, and how am I getting I'm not getting any of the reverberations from the rooms. how am I really truly mixing Atmos in my
I guess
headphones? But
I guess the whole thing with Atmos is it's immersive. It's meant to take you somewhere else. So when you've got it in a cinema, it is staggering. I remember the first time I heard it, we went to an art acoustic showroom, and it was the first time. It was the biggest revolution in surround sound that's ever been. It's the next 30 years of where surround sound is going to go, because it's so scalable and it's so clever. But yeah, I remember the first time hearing it. Me and my boss, we were sitting in this demo room, and they played the Dolby Atmos demo disc, and we were giggling like little kids. It
yeah,
was it was hilarious because I've never experienced anything like it, and because it was with a good screen and a good projector and good lighting and good seating, which is all about the cinema experience. It was the most incredible thing I'd heard, and we started doing it immediately. We converted our showroom. We got a new Marantz AVR at the time. Wasn't anything too fancy, but we got one, and I was crawling up the loft hatch and cutting holes. We had this old converted barn out in Bolney, and climbed up, and you're crawling all the way along, marking it out, putting the two speakers in, and then we had it in our cinema room within like a week of hearing it. And we were just sitting there playing games and watching it, just absolutely taken away by it. We weren't
yeah,
playing games, sorry, there weren't any games. Watching the game demos. There was a good
yeah.
Star Wars demo that came out for it.
That's right, because there was a whole. I had some notes here from the other week when I was looking into this, and they were kind of almost saying that what was it? It was Star Wars Battlefront, Overwatch, Battlefield 1, Gears of War 4. Apparently, they were the first kind of games to really sort of
Yeah,
like go for this. But I didn't know this. You probably did. But in terms of TV, Power, which is a show I actually quite liked, Power season 3 was mixed in Atmos.
yeah.
First one to do it, and the Game of Thrones now they upscaled it for the Blu-ray release. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you've not really done it.
It's not true Atmos when it's like that. It will still sound good. It will still be better than your normal 5.1, 7.1. Even if you just go 512,
Yeah.
it's going to be something else, but it's not going to be proper Atmos.
And this is the thing that I love. I love the fact you just said 512, right? Because I remember years ago, my stepdad, he got a Marantz, like,
Yeah,
just the processor basically, which actually has got to be said, it's a bit problematic, that thing, because it's one of the ones a bit like this, where they want you to run all your gear through it. So they
yeah.
want you to plug all your consoles in, and yet what I found was it actually in games consoles it added lag.
What, for
So it
the
was all,
audio?
yeah, it added
Yeah,
lag.
I mean that's fairly normal, but most amplifiers will have an audio delay setting.
Set in, you'd hope that's the thing. Well, I just said, look, just stop doing it. Just go through a different way, right? So we
Yeah.
re-rigged it. But he kept saying to me, and if he watches this, he's going to grill me for this, right? Because he kept putting it onto like a Dolby setting with height, and
Right.
it's like, oh, it sounds better, and I'm like, you don't have any height speakers connected to this system. You've literally got 5.1, right? Just 5.1. You haven't got a 0.2. You haven't got the height. So it's like you're setting it. Okay, it's distributing the sound differently, but you're essentially losing.
Yeah.
That's what you're
Yeah,
doing.
you're
Is you're
losing part of
detracting.
it. Yeah, yeah.
So how have people kind of like? I mean, was that a thing? Were people aware of the height? Like that? That's what I'm wondering. It's like, because I'm into this stuff and I love it, right? So if I came to you, I'd be like, Joe, I want 914. Can you sort me out
Yeah,
914, right?
yeah.
And you go, yeah, Mike, I can sort you out. But did you get people coming in, even, were they saying even back before Atmos, like, oh, I want this height thing? Or was it something you had to almost demo to them and then they go, yeah, I want that?
I mean, the benefit of having a showroom where you take people anywhere is you take them in, and generally the client doesn't know what they want. They know they want a home cinema. Most of our clients these days have got the budget for it, so most of our cinemas are kind of 60 grand plus, for a proper room. Fabric treated seating, lighting, the whole lot. Most I lost my train of thought there. Where was
Sorry,
I going?
mate.
That's
I
all
was
right.
talking about the set. I was talking about the
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, so basically they'll just come in and say, I want a cinema. They
right.
won't come in and say, I want Dolby Atmos. I have one client, I think, in my time that was like, I've been reading about Dolby Atmos. Can I do it in my room? In my room. I can get cables to the ceiling. Can I do it with my amp? And we looked at it, and there was a firmware update, because it was done on a firmware update. If you had a 7.1 system, some of the amps like Denon or whatever, they would release a firmware update so you could make it 512. The normal 2 surround channels then became your height channels, and the firmware update upgraded it to the Dolby Atmos program. So we did it, but otherwise, no. People come in and say they want a cinema, and if we can do Atmos, we will do Atmos. It's a standard thing now. It's like there's no reason not to do it. If someone's building a room, there's absolutely no reason not to do it. For essentially 2 all 4 speakers, if you're spending 60 grand on a cinema, what's another,
Exactly
5%?
that. Exactly that. I mean, so because that's the thing I was thinking of, is it's almost like, I mean, it's everywhere now. I think it's definitely on Apple Music. It's definitely on Tidal. Tidal were the first. They were before Apple to do it. I think Spotify is still not there. I think they're still waiting to get it on Spotify. But all the streaming services, I mean, like I say, I've got a few notes here, all of them. So your HBO, your Disney Plus, Netflix. It's on everything. And Dolby seemed to be, because that's the first time I noticed it in terms of it. I knew about the Dolby rooms, so you used to have to go to a Dolby screen to see Dolby Atmos, right?
Yeah.
And I gather they were experiencing with their Dolby Vision, their form of UHD.
Yeah.
And then I noticed it. I think I bought Blade Runner 2049, the new Blade Runner film, or the new is old now. But and it suddenly on iTunes it's coming up, Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision.
Yeah.
So
on your Apple TV.
Yeah. And I thought, hang about, like, what's that about? So I started looking into it. Then I had to get the 4K Apple TV so I could then actually do this, right? But it's a case of, like, I think Dolby really I've always said this, that they're unsung heroes in terms of what they did, even when we took stereo to quad in the cinema, denoising that optical tape, so you could get that noise, get that the sound floor, so to speak, or the denoising of that sound, so you could ramp it up, put it to quad, then Pro Logic, then Pro Logic 2. They've always sort of sat there in the sort of really out there, in my mind, really like cutting edge in terms of the tech, but they weren't a household name. Whereas now I feel like Dolby Atmos, Dolby Vision, they're starting to become household names, right? So when you talk about, obviously I gather that, because even in the cinemas now, they're not necessarily using, they might be using the Dolby racks in terms of the sound processors, but none of the amps are Dolby. So
none of the amps that we use are Dolby. It's software. It's literally a bit of code.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes it work.
Yeah, exactly. So are you finding people are sort of switching out a little bit back to the projection side? Are you finding people are going for sort of Dolby activated projectors that can do Dolby Vision as well? Or is that kind of less of the question? It's more when Dolby is concerned, it's more about the sound.
I think. I mean, I've been being out of the game for a couple of years really makes you quite rusty, and I'm a lot more just based on the tools these days. So I'm not having any involvement. Saying that, I'm going to a show next week. There's a show on Friday actually that's not too far from you in Farnham on Friday.
Oh yeah.
If you fancy coming along, Essential Install Live.
I'm free Friday, mate.
Yeah, cool. I'll send you the details for that.
Do it.
Because none of the guys at my work are going, but because I've been out of the game, I want to go experience it. They've probably got a demo room, maybe. So.
But in the defence there, it all changed very quick, in my opinion. All this stuff changed very fast, mate. Like, it's been, in my mind, the last 2 years, if that this has really started kicking off.
I think, probably in terms of like it becoming more household, but in terms of installing it, we've been doing it for. I mean, my concept of time is so warped from COVID and lockdowns and stuff. So but I've got it in my head that 5 or 6 years ago we were doing
it.
Atmos, because definitely, definitely, probably 6 years ago I think we started doing Atmos.
Well, that would make sense, because like we've just discussed with the 712, that was kind of getting there. They just hadn't perfected the algorithm.
Well, you've got DTSX as well, which is kind of the flip side of it. Obviously you've got DTS and Dolby are both. They both do the same thing, but it's different. It's just two sides of the same coin.
Two sides of the same,
But so Atmos has become a lot more household, because you'll watch the telly and you'll see an advert for a TV that's got a Dolby Atmos sound built into it, and you're seeing that all the time. I don't really watch telly anymore, but I remember seeing that, being like, what, Dolby Atmos? It wasn't making sense to me. I'm guessing from a TV, it's just the way the speakers are angled to give, kind of pseudo Dolby Atmos. I don't really know. It might be classified. I don't know how it gets classified. I haven't looked into it, to be honest.
Well, this was the thing, because I remember when I bought that, like, which is now what, the iPhone 11 Pro Max, right?
Yeah.
And I went up to the Lake District. I like just booked myself into a cabin on my own for a week, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I took a couple of movies and just thought, I was watching them on my phone. So I think I was watching Taken. I like those films, the Taken films, proper dad films.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm in this small place, like, and it's quiet, it's dead, and I'm watching it on my phone, and I'm like, my God, the sound's good.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on with this kind of thing? Like, what is happening? And obviously,
it suddenly just sits here, isn't it? It's
weird.
Like
because it's from the phone speakers, but then it made sense to me, and then I'm turning it left and I'm turning it right. But obviously, the iPhones have got speakers in the top and speakers on the bottom, so they've got quad. So it's obviously just the way that again, the Dolby Atmos algorithm distributes the sound to give it space, and it really did do that. Like on a phone, I must admit, this was 3 years ago, and I was quite like, that is actually really cool. And the same with we're spoiled now. Like we same with the iPad. I got one of these iPad Pros in front of me.
Yeah,
if I do watch a film on there, like if I'm just chilling in bed, I'm like, this is cool. It does sound good, but the purist in me is still like, this is not going to beat proper spaced speakers going through a proper processor with a proper subwoofer. It's just not gonna beat that.
But if you want proper good, the highest end of stuff, you can be spending 30 grand on an amp, and then 15 grand on the processor, or the other way around, and then you've got separate sub amps, and then and then it's going to take God knows how long to calibrate, because there's one company where it doesn't even come pre-programmed. You create the entire, I can't even think of the terminology, man. Like, it's way beyond me. We have got someone trained in it, but that level of it, not for me. At the moment, it will come, I'm sure. But so the amps that we normally use, do you know Anthem? Have you come across Anthem? Yeah. So Anthem is our kind of like go-to. They're pretty good. They're pretty good amps. We have got a couple of projects coming up that are using Trinov audio. We've got one coming up with Storm Audio, who are a French company. I mean, it's real high-end stuff, way beyond anything I did when I was doing, Denon and Onkyo and Marantz and stuff. It's really taken a level up. But the other side of it is everything's gone up so much in price.
Yeah,
absolutely rocketed.
Yeah,
I was looking at prices today on like entry-level AVRs, and they're nearly twice the price of they were 3 years ago.
Yeah, and it's even things like this, because it's kind of like I've been getting a lot into game sound, and I don't actually own a console anymore. So I thought, you know what, I don't need a PS5. I get myself a PS4. Yeah, good luck. You can't get one because
not even PS4.
No, mate, because the microchips. There's no because of what we went through, and because of current issues in the world, we can't get the microchips. So
that is the same across, I think, every industry. When we were selling tools, there was nothing available for months and months and months. We've been given lead times by some certain brands, and they're giving us like 26-month lead times. You're going,
I've got this project I need to do right now.
It's 26 months. Like, are you absolutely joking?
Yeah, it's crazy, mate. It's insanity. It really is insanity. So I suppose that is going to hit. I mean, I think Sony in that ballpark of they're prioritizing the PS5, which makes sense. Is that they need the parts for the PS5, right? And I suppose they're still profiting from it in terms of the PS4, because people like me who just want a PS4 will probably pay more money now for the PS4. Because they want to get one, but they don't want to pay the big bucks for the PS5. But I suppose it's the same with the amps, because a lot of this, like in the cinemas, for instance, a lot of this is becoming automated now. Well, it's very automated in the cinemas. Even they're all digital buttons. Every amp can be logged into remotely, so you can change voltages. You can switch over from, I don't know, say like a center channel blows, they can just move the dialogue to the left or to the right or surround, so that the film can still play, and all this can be done remotely. So it seems.
Oh, is this in a commercial cinema?
Yeah. It's like an Odeon view or something like that. It's all the new builds are very much kind of press one button and the whole thing goes off. Whereas the older ones, you got to go and flip all the amps off and manually shut it all down, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that's the thing as well. I wanted to ask you. So someone says, build me a cinema. I gather I mean, what does that look like? You go in and you gut the room, and you're like, right, we're going to put the racking here. We're going to.
So it's generally a lot of the cinemas that we do are part of an entire house because we do home automation as well. We are doing stuff we're controlling the air conditioning, we're controlling the lighting, we're controlling the heating, CCTV, opening gates, turning your music on across the entire house, Wi-Fi. We do the entire package, but we only do second fix, so we're not there physically building the rooms. We do some framing stuff if it low level carpentry, and fixing stuff, but most of the time it is all under control. One app will do the whole lot, or a handheld remote control.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then
So people are saying, I want mine, I want to be able to raise my curtains.
Yeah.
I want music in every room. I want light systems. And are these like almost like bespoke systems, or are people using say Apple HomeKit or Google Home or
no. So we're doing Control 4. I don't know if you've come across Control 4.
No.
So it's a home automation system. There are a few big players. You've got Crestron, who are top dog, but Crestron it's a lot more kind of marine and really, really super high end, but it's quite a difficult thing. Crestron's only as good as your programmer, and the better the programmer, the more expensive they are.
Right,
good programmers, you'll be paying £1,000 to £1,500 a day for their labor. Yeah.
Wow.
For real top end, if you're doing a real high end, it's big bucks. So other brands, you've got Elan, who are an American company. You've got Savant, I think they're also American. Control 4, they're definitely American. RTI, URC, these are all sort of many sides of different coins. So we're predominantly Control 4. I've got a couple of Elan projects from my previous job. We have got a couple of Savant projects. We do look after some URC. We do look after some RTI, but it's all dated stuff. Predominantly with Control 4, and that is what everything connects to. It's kind of like a central computer. You install drivers, so I'll look up a driver for a Marantz MRX 1140 amp, and what that does is it's generally you link someone at Control 4 will have a deal with the manufacturer so that it can all be brought in. When you bring that in, it will have all your inputs, it will have all your volume up and down commands, and then you're essentially logically connecting everything to where it needs to go. Your audio endpoints, your video endpoints, where this source is going to, it's going to the projector, but it's not the projector doing the sound, it's the amp doing the sound. And then when you're doing this, make sure that you can event map everything. So you can say, when you turn the cinema on, after 15 seconds, when the projector's warmed up and it started giving an image, start to dim the lights down slowly, and then open the curtains or shut the curtains. You can do some really nice stuff, but it's all going back to the whole experience. It's all about creating that cinema experience. Because when I had the showroom in Brighton, the place that I worked, I would go there after work and I would just sit in the cinema and I might watch an episode of, I don't know, NCIS or something. Nothing fancy, nothing too Atmos, but I've got a big screen, I've got amazing sound, I've got electric, comfy, reclining seats, and I could be anywhere in the world, and I'm sat in the middle of Brighton, and then you just walk out like, oh, okay, I'm going
to go home, I suppose.
Or something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's all about the experience and the atmosphere. Or Dolby Atmos here.
Yeah, so that's okay. So that's interesting then. That people are, it sounds like they're really going for it. It's almost like I don't just want the cinema. I want.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't actually answer your question where you said, do we go in and gut the room? No, we don't gut the room, but we will. If it's being custom built, we might make some recommendations, but generally a builder will come to us, the client will come to us with the plan saying we have this amount of space. We'll then go and look at the room. We can make specifications for what depths we need or spaces for things. We can have a say in that. So we do get quite involved, but generally it's at there'll be interior designers who are doing things. You've got the builders who are doing things, carpenters who are doing things to our spec, ready for us to go and install the speakers, the sound treatment, the projector, the screen, and then and then really make it come together.
Roll
And then
from
once
there.
everything's installed, we'll then program it to make it work seamlessly under the Control 4 platform.
That's it. And I gather that includes things like EQ in the room and making sure
Yep.
that everything's correct.
Yes.
You know,
So there's DIRAC, which is room audio correction. You get other things like Odyssey is kind of the entry level one. Anthem's one's pretty good. You get sent with the bigger amps, you get sent like a real professional mic kit to EQ the room with it. But you know, when you're spending that amount of money on an amplifier, the manufacturer wants you to have the best experience. So they will do everything that they can for you to maximize the output of your system.
Well, I mean, those things, because I use it because I keep moving. You know, I'm like, every time I haven't actually done it in this flat yet. I need to, but I've even got like an almost literally like a points upwards to the ceiling, omnidirectional mic that just sends the sine wave all around the different room in different locations. And I apply an EQ to my master fader in Pro Tools, you know, and that then gives me a bit of takes out any basses and things like that. So I gather it's a similar thing. That you're using there.
Yeah.
So what about in terms of like, will you make recommendations? I suppose in terms of like, this is your space. You know, we don't want to put a 300-watt sub in there or whatever else. You know, will you look at kind of the space in terms of the wattage of what they're going to need?
Not necessarily at wattage, but what, you know, generally I think we try and find out a budget, because you know we could do a £20,000, well maybe not even, 15 to £20,000 cinema room, and then you can go right the way up to sky's the limit, man. Like really, you could spend £1 million on a cinema room if you wanted. You really
just keep
could.
Going for it.
Yeah. It's doable. You know, if you've got a big space and you've got the seating can cost you can spend £15,000 per seat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you've got a 10-person cinema, there's 150 grand gone like
just
that.
In seating.
Just in
seating. Amazing. All right, so let's look at if me or you wanted a cinema room, right? You know,
You would laugh at my setup. I don't have a setup anymore. It's terrible. Standard though, isn't it? You know, it's my trade. So it's your trade, my home stuff is terrible.
It makes sense, right? I mean, like I say, I've told you, I'm still using that thing from '95, right? Which I'm pretty happy with. It sounds pretty good. I was watching that. What's it? Rings of Power earlier.
Yeah.
New Lord of the Rings. I'm not sure what I think about it yet, but I've been chilling out watching that and like, it sounds pretty good. It sounds good. But like, so if I wanted, like, say I came to you and I had like a modest room, you know, like a front room, a standard sort of, you know, not £1 million house front room. Do you know what I mean?
6x4.
6x4, yeah, 6x4. And I said, look, I've not got a huge amount of money, but I really wanted to get myself like just sound, right? I just wanted to get like Dolby Atmos in there. What do you reckon we're talking at, sort of roughly, like entry level, if you wanted Dolby Atmos at home?
I mean, entry level. I mean, my figures are probably way out, you know, these days, because everything's gone up so much in price. But I seem to, if you were doing it on a budget, you could get some, maybe
£3,000, £4,000.
I reckon you could do it. Depends on the TV as well, because most TVs you're going to probably spend £2,000 to £4,000 on.
It's true.
For something for our rooms. But if you're just saying audio, get rid of the telly. Yeah, you could probably do it for £2,000 to £3,000, probably closer to £3,000. But it depends. There'll probably be real basic speakers.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, in terms of the range, but you would still get the experience.
Just not.
You can just always go up. Like, I guess that's the thing I've learned. You know, I did have a friend. Oh, he's still my friend. But he basically started getting into surround sounds. He obviously knew what I did. I think it was his granddad gave him an old amplifier, and it had Dolby Digital, like
nice
original Dolby
the
Digital.
The big old label on the front. I love it.
And he had these mishmash array of speakers. He had this really crass bell wire speaker, and he had these scissors that he was trying to strip it back with, and they were like, you know, there's just this little strand, and he was like, yeah, look, surround sound. I'm like, dude, they're all here, like all the speakers are here. And so basically I started schooling him on Dolby Atmos, and he really took to it. And then, you know, he got 4K TV. That was the start. And then he upgraded his Xbox, and he was like, you know, I'm getting into surround sound. He got a real cheap old surround sound amp, I think for like 50 quid from someone. It was a real chunky Onkyo. And then, you know, he still had the crap speakers, but he had the surround sound going, and you know, it was quite an experience. He went and bought this sub. This sub, right, was £79 from Richer Sounds. This Yamaha sub, and it is still one of the best subs I've heard to this day. Like, I don't know what it is. It's just an absolute freak buy that is just for his room. It is just perfect. Like, it's incredible. So yeah, started doing that, you know, the sub, and then he started getting other speakers. We got a Kefeg system. I think I had 3 speakers from a job that went to him, and then we found another pair on eBay, so we got the full surround sound. And then I had a Dolby Atmos amp come up for option, which he embarked on. I think he just had some crap speakers for a while, again on the ceiling. And then I had these speakers, these Origin Acoustics thin flat. My old boss had double ordered them, and we'd had them for years, but they were brand new. We looked them up, you know, they were a retail of £800 a pair, and he let them go for 120 quid. So he got these, and it was ideal for his his converted garage, but they were real thin, so they fit perfectly in the ceiling. And then he had a full Dolby Atmos, and it was such a sweet little room. You know, it was a little smoking den. We used to go and play cards or whatever, and we'd go and watch stuff on Netflix. You know, I'm middle-aged. I'm classed as middle-aged these days, Mike. And you know, I'm still doing stuff as if I'm 18.
I know, mate. What happened to us, middle-aged?
Oh no, it's crazy. I remember. Just a slight diversion here. I remember getting offended during COVID when they were saying it's down to young people that it's spreading, and I was like, it's not down to us. Like, that's a joke. And then they were saying, oh, it's 18 to 25-year-olds. I was like, oh, I'm well out of that, mate. Yeah.
Nothing to do with me, mate. I'm here having a glass of wine. Yeah. Stuff. Yeah, it's crazy, mate. Brilliant. Hang on, was that hang on a minute? Was that the reason you realised you were getting old? Was that literally the example that made you realise you were getting old?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, I love that, mate. That's funny. Yeah. That is funny. But so this is the
so that was essentially what happened. So then we just started doing movie nights and stuff, and he would really crank it because it was a garage. He'd insulated the walls and everything. It made it real nice. And we were only like, I don't know, less than 2 meters wide, this place, with the sofa. Like, it was a tight little space, and you just had a couple of Kefegs here, and then the speakers directly above it. I mean, it wasn't a scientifically correct Atmos room, but it was 512, and you had the height stuff. And I mean, watching it on Netflix, it's all right, but it's massively compressed. I took around a high-end Blu-ray player, high-end Sony Blu-ray player, about £1,000 retail, I think. And I took it around and we plugged it straight into his telly, and we watched Avengers Infinity War in Atmos, and it was absolutely staggering. Like, the difference between that and his Xbox in terms of playing the same Blu-ray was night and day. And he was just and the sound as well. You know, if you were to watch it on Netflix, you're probably getting 20% of the quality you can get off of a full disc.
That's the thing people don't get as well, because a Blu-ray disc, and I could be completely wrong here, but I think it's 60 gig.
Yeah, I would say that's 60 gig. Yeah.
So if it's 60 gig, I mean, if you're looking at, I think they were saying something like a high-end Netflix stream is something like a gigabyte an hour.
No, I think it's about 6 gig an hour.
Okay, so it's right.
Or maybe 3 gig an hour. I'm trying to think what it is.
It might be for their UHD package, their top package that they.
Yeah. Oh yeah, So I think that was it. 4K Netflix streams at about 6 gig an hour. From memory, that was a few years ago.
So if you've got a 2-hour film, you're talking 12 gig versus 60 gig. I mean, it's a huge amount of compression.
It's 20%. That's gone on there. Yeah, man, it is staggering. There's this brand called Kaleidoscape, something you might be interested in. One day, I mean, they are thousands of pounds.
Give me a few years to save, yeah?
Maybe like 10 grand for a good Kaleidoscape. But basically, it's just a server, and it connects to the Kaleidoscape store, and then you go and buy films on there. But they are the highest quality you will ever get. And you'll spend quite a lot of money. Some of the films you can spend 30, 40 quid on, but it will give you every single format. You can remote in, and you can play around with your library and stuff. And there are some stuff. So basically, they've done some deals with. I don't know if it's come in, but I remember the rep telling me they were calling it day and date. I think they were saying. So Kaleidoscope were trying to work out a deal. I don't know if it happened, that when a film comes out, they will have it straight onto their platform as well as in the cinema, because they're saying if the client has got this level of quality hardware and quality audio,
they can afford to
they
pay
will
them.
have a system that will warrant them not seeing it in the cinema,
and they'll
because
probably
they feel
pay.
they're getting the experience.
They'll probably will pay as well.
Yeah.
You know, because this was the whole experiment. Was it? I think it was like, I'm gonna say, was it Trolls World Tour that they put out during the lockdown? You know, and it was like 25 quid or whatever.
Right.
I'm thinking to myself, there wasn't really a decent enough experiment, because people were in lockdown. If you got kids, they're already going nuts. Of course, you're going to spend £25 to get a film. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't really feel like that was a decent enough experiment of that. But that's interesting you say that, because that was going to be one of my questions: was, will Blu-ray almost stay around for people with high-end rigs? But if you're saying now you've got this other service where they can buy the film and then they can just download it as and when they need it, then perhaps not.
I mean, it's a custom install product, so it's not something that you could just go and buy off the shelf. Like, you have to go through a company that are a dealer of it. I don't know. It's a difficult one, really.
Or again, do people just not know and don't care?
Yeah, I don't know, because obviously, you know, you've seen the rise and fall of DVDs, and then you had the HD DVD versus Blu-ray war, and Blu-ray obviously reigned supreme over that. And it's, you know, it is fantastic quality. You cannot beat this quality stuff. It's kind of like wired and wireless, I guess. You can confirm it, sort of compare it to, because they are the same thing. If you've got a wireless surround sound system, it will work, but it's never going to be as good if you've got a hardwired system.
No, of course not. No, because it's just you've got all the
same as your phone Wi-Fi.
Exactly. Well, then as well, you've got a whole system dealing with like buffering and delay and lagging and all that stuff. That's got
my Apple TV trips out like 3 times an hour. It drives me bonkers, and I don't know what it's. The router's not that bad. Like, you know, my home tech is just not great.
Get yourself a cable, mate. I mean, I've got mine plugged in.
The router's in the hallway, though, isn't it? I could fix it easy. You know, I could fix it easy.
It'd take you half an hour, Joe, to sort that out.
I just need to pin a tech. I know. I've got all the stuff in my van as well.
It's true though. You do it all day. You don't want to do it at home, right?
No, exactly.
It's one of those things, man. That, I mean, it's an interesting conversation, isn't it, around that with quality? Because it's like, if you're taking it back to that first conversation, someone comes in, I want a cinema.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll install you a cinema. There's then that conversation, isn't there, around kind of, are they going to even think about the quality, you know, or I suppose they're only going to think of it if they play something and they're like, oh, this isn't that great. And it's like, well, yeah, you're watching a 720, you know, bad rip because you've got like a rubbish internet connection. You know, here's an actual Blu-ray thing, you know.
Yeah, I mean, generally, most people will just use it for streaming these days. It's rare that we install a Blu-ray player anymore. I mean, I used to put them in every single job. Doesn't really happen anymore. It doesn't really happen anymore. But I mean, we work with someone's budget. You know, we'll always work with someone's budget. We'll be honest as well. You know, if they're asking for the moon on a stick for a £5, we'll tell them that they can't have that.
You're not gonna have it.
You know, we'll never compromise our quality to meet someone else's needs. Like, it's got to be a mutual relationship, and most of our clients are aware of that. Most of our clients are long-standing, to be honest. You know, they've been around for 20 years, and we've done multiple of their houses as they've built and moved on. But yeah, I mean, you've got to work to make sure that they're getting the right experience, meeting expectations, really, because we're never going to sell them a crap cinema.
No, exactly. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah,
it's not. No, so that
it's nice having the level. So it's nice having the level of clients in this space that I didn't have at the last one. So people that are serious, you know, they're not coming to us and saying, look, we've got a 20 grand budget, but we want a full home automation system. We want a full home automation system. How much is that going to cost? We have a budget for a cinema room. You know, we've got one that we're doing at the moment up in Weybridge, and it's like £100,000 room, and it's a little basement room. It's going to be fantastic.
Sweet.
It's going to be absolutely really cool. Fantastic.
It's cool as well in the people still want to have that experience. You know, I mean, obviously this is a high end thing, right? I can't see me ever having under £100,000 cinema room.
No, me neither, man.
But you know,
I spent £800 on the telly. That was enough.
we spend more than me, mate. I got that Amazon warehouse, 400 quid.
I did get it on finance though.
Love it, mate. Love it.
Interest free,
mate. Interest free. And you got into that old trap. But you know, it's I suppose my point is that you can. I think most people, if they've reached a certain, probably most people our age, really, if they're into it, could find £3,000 to do a room eventually. If that right next year, I want to put a cinema room in, put a little. I mean, maybe not energy prices and stuff aside, like maybe not whatever. But what I'm saying is like, you know, I think it is possible for you to create a pretty immersive room for yourself. Even me, still using a 5.1 Pro Logic from '95. I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about it, Mike. You can probably get ceiling speakers for £100 a pop. For you know, something that's going to be respectable. I know you could probably go and find them for 30 quid, but they will sound like, you know, a shopping centre toilet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's not great. And then, you know, for a decent centre channel, you might spend 100 quid. Yeah. I'm saying decent. You know, you could spend thousands on a single centre channel. Like it's bonkers. But you know, if someone's doing it on a budget, 100 quid. So say you've got 8 speakers. Let's just go in, say £1,000 for the speakers. Cheapest amp I was looking at earlier for that I would respectable entry level, 750, which used to be 399 when I was previous, you know,
so it's gone up that much
ago. Yeah, 399.
But is that doing the same sort of thing? Is that still just an Atmos ready amp?
Yeah,
it's gone up that much then.
Yeah, and then, you know, sub for something respectable, you probably want to spend a few hundred quid. Yeah, so 2.5 to 3. It can be done. It can definitely be done.
Okay, and a bit of a techie question now, right? Just because I'm interested in this now, because a lot of rigs I've seen are almost using like custom Ethernet AES, like to connect this up, and then other rigs you're seeing are literally still using HDMI. If we're talking about going into that rack, how does that, is a Dolby, has Atmos got its own kind of way of connecting, or is it literally just HDMI or custom AES?
So the amp will be Dolby Atmos, and then all that's doing is that's auto detecting all the audio sources, all the audio encoding that's going to be there. So if you switch it, if you set your whatever device to Atmos, and then the amp detects Atmos, it will throw out Atmos. It's literally as simple as that, and it's still HDMI. HDMI is still evolving. You know, we're going up to like 48 gig.
In terms of bandwidth, Jesus.
Yeah.
Gigs, right? That is pretty incredible.
You know, we were sitting at 18 for 4K, but it's going for 8K. I think it's going up to 48 gig.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's not going anywhere soon.
No, but you're limited on distance. You've got a lot of funky bits of tech. I don't know if you come across HD base T.
I haven't, no.
So HD base T is really clever. It's basically a single cat cable, and it will convert HDMI, audio, infrared, RS-232, which is like a control, and it can take network as well from a single cable and a power source at one end. You send a single Ethernet cable. You know, the higher the spec, the more you can get out of it. But you could send a 4K 444 image all the way down that cable to a TV, and all you got is a little box on the wall, HDMI in, HDMI out, and it's just converting it.
I have seen that in practice, where you're literally sending, say, like a HDMI out of a laptop into like a Kramer, you know, distributor, and then through Ethernet at another end, you got your receiver, your de-embedder, one into a projector, one into a rack. I have seen that going through Ethernet. So this is what I'm saying. So it is like you say, Cat. For anyone listening, we've gone too techie. You know, Ethernet and Cat, they're kind of the same thing. Just Cat in different, you know, Cat 6, Cat 5, whatever else, different bandwidths. But that's interesting that everything's going. You can literally have your rack in one corner and all your tech in another, and just a couple of Ethernet cables basically connecting between the two.
Generally, if we're doing home automation, we'll have a central hub of the entire house, and that will run the whole thing. We've got one coming up at the moment. It's quite a big project. in Rodine locally, and the rack's taller than me, and it's full of equipment. But that's network switches to power the Wi-Fi, power the touchscreens. You've got amplification, you've got control systems, you've got your video sources, so Apple TV and Sky or whatever. It's pretty nuts. Video distribution, audio distribution, and it's all controlled pretty much over CAT and 2-core speaker cable.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Just the scale of it. Yeah, the scale of it is just it's all cable. I mean, I hate cables, so it's music to my ears that we can have almost like a plant room to deal with all that stuff. And then just a couple of cables linking it through, and obviously your speaker cables in the wall. Great.
Yeah, it's making me think of a job that we've got. We're doing one in Knightsbridge at the moment, and we've got like 3-4 rack areas across the whole property, and each one has got like hundreds of cables in. You got your cable ties ready, yeah? Mate, it's insane. We've been working there. I've been working there for nearly a year, and we're still doing cable stuff. It's insane. The electricians have been running cables there for 3 years, and they still are. Mate, yeah. It's bonkers. It's 3 basement levels. It's 3 upper levels. It's they've got like hundreds of lines across the property. They've got a 6-car garage. It's a whole nother world, this stuff. And they've got a Wisdom Audio Trinov amplification and processing home cinema in the second basement of the house.
So you're running cables literally everywhere just to get all this in.
Yeah.
Insanity.
And then they're going to have a fully automated projector lift, so it drops down from the ceiling and it'll be completely hidden when it's not there. It's all going to be fabric treated as well, so you're not going to see any of the speakers. So it's going to sound absolutely stunning. Because that's the other thing you've got to take in mind when you're building a home cinema is sound treatment, acoustic treatment. So getting the right absorption and reflection in the right point. So when you're mapping it out and drawing it, you've got obviously the angles of where the speakers are. You've got our seating position, the heights. We do all the elevations. We do all the technical drawings for it to make sure that it works properly. Like that's the level that we do our Atmos, is to make sure it works. If it doesn't work, we don't do it.
Yeah. So sorry guys, this isn't going to work for this room. You can't do it.
If someone has specifically come and said, I want Dolby Atmos, then obviously we try and make it work. Or, some people might not be fussed about making a complete ceiling redesign because it doesn't work at the moment. But most of the time in construction, we can specify. It all depends on the house. If it's a new build, if it's a renovation, new builds are a bit more flexible. Renovations, sometimes you've got to work with what you got.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this one you may not have thought of. So don't worry if you haven't, but it's something I'm I'm interested in at the moment, is this whole, what are your thoughts in terms of the future, right? Because I know it seems silly saying this, given that we're in a stage where I agree with you, mono to stereo, stereo to quad to sort of surround, Pro Logic 2, Pro Logic 2 to Atmos. We're almost in that stage where, and especially in terms of music, it really is the difference to me between mono and stereo right now. We're talking about with Atmos. This is like the next stage. So it sounds crazy me asking this question, given that we're already at a stage of like technical innovation, right?
Yeah.
But where do you see all this stuff going? It's like, we've got Atmos or spatial in our AirPods, right? You're wearing a set now, right?
Yeah.
We've got AR coming. We've got the metaverse coming. We've got all these sorts of different VR things coming, right? Can you see that almost fitting into like a cinema room, or do you think that will be a completely different industry that will be more someone just experiencing that on their own, as opposed to being in this sort of space designed for that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one, because obviously you can get 3D projectors. It's still with glasses. I don't know. I haven't met anyone. I'm not too keen on the idea of the metaverse. Every video I watch of old Zuckerberg terrifies me. I'm sure he's an android now. He's absolutely terrifying. I can't handle it. Augmented reality is interesting. It's quite fascinating seeing it. I mean, I do go to trade shows, or I used to go to quite a few trade shows. There was a big one at ISE, which used to be in Amsterdam all the time. It's moved to Barcelona now. Didn't make it this year because we were too busy. But maybe next year might head out there and go have a look. But that's across the entire industry. So it's Integrated Systems Europe. So you'll get digital signage, and you'll get drones, and you'll get home cinema stuff. You'll get distribution, whatever, electrical, and that's where you see stuff that can be mirrorless projection and stuff. Crazy stuff. I don't know where it's going to go in terms of audio. I'm sure there'll be some kind of weird Dolby Atmos metaverse thing that can happen if people have got their VR headset but they're sitting in a cinema room. I don't know. But really, I think in terms of where we're at with surround sound in technology and where Dolby Atmos is, I don't know that it's going to change that much, to be honest, because it's scalable to such a level. If you've got a bigger room, you put more speakers in, you put more amps in, and Dolby Atmos is clever, and it says, oh right, there's this many speakers. I know that if I'm sending a sound from this corner to this corner, it's not just going to go around 4 speakers, it's going to go around 12 speakers. It is absolutely mind-blowing, and it's very exciting to hear it. I mean, I really implore people to go and hear something, or just go and find your local home cinema dealer to say, I just want to experience Atmos. I really want to
hear what it's like, because that's the thing I was saying in the last video, is it's not just, that's where they've been so clever, is you've got what they call musical beds, obviously, which is your traditional front left, center, front right, rear left, rear right, or your sort of your 7.1s this side, right?
Yeah.
So now if you've got that in almost 9, then you've got your height as well.
Yeah.
They can then do what they're calling obviously objects.
Object based,
yeah. You see, you've not only, so they can start spinning stuff around your head and all,
Yeah.
And I find that, and especially those two things then that then can work in tandem. Because one of the rooms I've seen has got like 49 speakers in it, and obviously they're all over the ceiling.
Yeah.
But then when you look at the racks, it is like one amp that's controlling, say, a cluster of speakers.
Yeah.
But then obviously the processors, and like you say, that it's just, all right, I've got this room. Okay, this is this cluster of speakers. Let's put this signal out, but just put slight delays on them. I mean, it's quite incredible the way that they do that. So I think you're right. I think if the algorithm gets cleverer, so to speak, or more advanced, it will just be a firmware update, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. It will just be a patch to Dolby Atmos, I'm sure, and then it just comes through the means of a firmware update. Trinoff Audio. I don't know how best to explain this in a techno way, but basically there's something about Trinoff where you don't need to ever upgrade their amplifiers. It's never going to become redundant, because everything that they do is software based. So they just give you new software. When you're spending tens of thousands of pounds on amplification and processing, it means you're in it for life. You don't have to worry about spending out on, or if there's spending out on stuff because there's new tech. If something came out in 10 years that was going to supersede Dolby Atmos, not supersede, but be a next step from Dolby Atmos, no doubt that they'll offer it out, and there you go.
It's good to hear, man. It's good to hear. It's good to hear, and I'm kind of with you. I'm asking people these questions when it comes to this meta stuff, because I'm just interested in what their take is. Because I'm with you, it scares me, and I feel like it's sort of a detractor rather than something that. And the only
is it big?
Sorry,
like is it taking off? Is it big? Because I just feel like no one I know or have spoken to has done anything with it or has any interest in it.
So no one's done anything with it, but it's a case of that it's not there yet. I mean, they're trialing the glasses, and they're saying that I reckon we're about 5 years off, me and you being able to essentially do this podcast in the room together, yet you're not here and you'll be a hologram.
What with all 5 years? You reckon 5 years?
I reckon we're about 5 years. Maybe not for me and you, but there's probably people doing similar things than that now. I mean, I just don't. That's what Zuckerberg was saying. I watched a podcast with him recently, and he reckons about 5-6 years you could essentially. His example was a poker game.
I did see a clip of that, and that was what terrified me. That was my most recent thing.
I think that was probably me. Was it me putting a clip up going, I don't like this?
Oh, maybe.
Because I did do that. I put it on Instagram.
Yeah, quite possibly then. Yeah.
So, and the only thing that really helped me in terms of AR was when I moved house, and I wanted to see whether a wardrobe was going to fit in my bedroom. Because if you go on the IKEA app, You
Yeah.
can choose a wardrobe or whatever. You do it on Amazon as well, and it will scan your room, and then you can place the item in your room and see if it's too big or too
No.
small. Yeah, man. That's what.
Oh, mate. Sam, no.
So it's yeah. I think it's just another world. I think people are there already. You know, when I see people, for instance, at the university or just out in the street, you know, a lot of people are plugged into their AirPods. They're
Yeah.
mostly looking at their phones even while they're walking down the street now. So it's
Yeah,
like you
it
could
is
say
becoming Black Mirror.
you
And
could
I'm a
say you're
sucker
there.
for it.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's well,
Yeah.
there, mate. Don't look. They're here. You know, mate. I've got them. You know, I walk down the road listening to them. You know, I'm not
Oh,
looking at my
music's
phone.
great. Yeah, no.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is a different. I think you're right. I think metaverse isn't there yet, but I do think it'll end up in schools. I do think that the Facebook will get in there in terms of like, let's go and look around Egypt, guys. You know, let's go and look around the pyramid, or let's.
Oh, yeah.
I do think you'll get that, and then of course they'll, like all companies do, man. Like there's a reason that like Google Docs, it came through the colleges and the schools, and now those people who then went to university and then into the workplace, they're going to forever
Oh,
use Google
yeah.
Docs.
Yeah. So
It's
then it
just
just
how
goes with the generation, then, doesn't it?
just
Yeah,
becomes
clever.
conscious. Just becomes conscious. Well,
Yeah.
mate, look, that you know, it's been really useful for me. Just to, and like I say, perfect from the previous episode that I
Yeah.
did. You know, where I talked about this.
I did
Have you
actually write down, or I think
you've
I
written some stuff
screenshotted the
down?
other day. I think I screenshotted. I'm gonna say, oh god, mate, there's just so much junk. I'm pretty sure I screenshotted a kit list the other day
Oh,
for cinema
nice.
that we've
Not
got
yes.
coming
Let's have
up.
it. Let's have it. Let's have it.
Where are we? Screenshots.
Welcome to
So
Joe's 10,000
so
screenshots.
many memes. There we go. Right. Okay. So this is a reference level. I don't know if you know what reference level is.
Is that like an initial spec?
So reference level is basically I'm gonna get an official definition because I'll probably butcher it.
I'm not gonna lie. I literally just guessed there.
Right. Okay. So reference level simply means that a recognized signal will be produced at a certain volume level at the seating position / microphone position.
Oh right.
That's
Okay.
it.
Yeah. Okay. I've got.
So
Yeah. Almost like
think,
the director's chair. Like how loud it's gonna be at the point you're sitting. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah. Makes
sure.
sense.
I think the way that reference level works is it's 1 meter from the screen.
Right. Okay.
Right. I think, or from the speaker. I think that's how it works. And then basically every meter you lose 3 dB.
Right. Okay.
So I think which technically, I might be absolutely butchering this as well, but I think every 3 dB is double the sound or half the sound in a technical standpoint. Obviously, for you and me or anyone else, if you've half the sound of something, it's going to be considerably quieter. But it's not how it works in audio. I might have that wrong. But I'm pretty sure it's 110 decibels. I'm just double checking that. Reference level audio. Yeah, 110 dB is
That's damn loud.
It's pretty loud. Right. So anyway, it's a reference level 11.4.4 Dolby Atmos home cinema. So the customer's already got his JVC 4K projector, so we're reusing that. He's got a 170-inch screen going in. And it's called the Zero Edge, so it's got absolutely no frame or bezel that you see. It's just like
screen.
A sheet, yeah, and that's acoustically transparent. So it'll be micro perforated across the entire screen, meaning that the screen will sit over the front speakers.
Yep.
And it can travel through it. You get a tiny little bit of sound reduction, but you know the amplification of the speakers that are being used doesn't matter. You're never going to notice it.
Especially if you're blasting 100 and whatever much dB. My God.
Yeah. So they've got a Crix MX30 speaker going in, LCR, which then has I'm pretty sure it's two 12-inch subwoofers, maybe 14-inch subwoofers. I can't remember. And then that sits with the infinite baffle across the front. So that we basically have a recess built by the builders. So the speaker literally just sits in perfectly. Screen will hang over the front. They've got two. Everything's Crix here. So Crix are really good. I think they did all the View cinemas in the Middle East or something, and they work generally with Trinov. The guy I worked with was actually the first. He managed to get it into the UK. He was the first distributor.
Okay.
Of it. He brought it into the UK. No one had really heard of them. And then we had the first Crix demo center in England. in Brighton, and people were coming by, and it was mind blowing. Like no one had heard anything. It was just the ease of it and how good it sounded. So everything's Cricks here. I'll send you some links after, and you should
Please
definitely
do,
check
mate.
them out.
I'm going to check them out for sure.
So they got the LCR. They've then got two speakers behind the seating, two speakers front, left, and right, which are wide. So they got the three across the front, and then they've got some front wides. They've then got some surrounds. You've then got four surround speakers, two behind, two at the front, and then 4 Atmos channels. And then they've also got some in-wall sub bass, which is going behind the seating. So they're going to have 4 subs in the room, 2 at the back, 2 at the front. And then they've got a Trinnov altitude and a Trinnov amplitude. So you've got a 16-channel DSP,
Right.
Digital sound processor, and a 16-channel amplifier, and then 2 separate sub amps as well to control the 4.
So are those? This is where it's almost confused me with having the. Would that still? So technically, is that technically a 9.4.4, or is the 0.1 in terms of the LFE in terms of the subs? Is that just the one subwoofer that's just in 4, so you get more sound?
I don't know, because it is just one sub channel essentially, isn't it?
So I think it's just making
I think it's just started to come into the fact that people are saying, well, if it's 11.4.4 means you've got 11 surround speakers, you've got 4 subs, and you've got 4 height. Like, I mean, it's probably 11.14, I guess, if you're thinking channels. But I think that's just kind of how it's evolved in the industry, of how people are referencing it. Because then maybe it's just a bit of a pissing contest, mate. To be like, yeah, I'm putting 4 subs in this one.
Yeah, mate.
11.8.2.
Check me out. But that would make sense, yeah. To me, the points are all about channels, because that's dodgy ground. If you start mixing bass,
residential, mate, residential.
Just like, it's like
we're doing residential installs. It's a heavily dominated industry of guys and gals that are it's just always quite a party vibe. Like, everyone's generally quite light-hearted, and everyone helps each other out. It's quite a small industry. A lot of people know each other. There's quite a few Facebook groups where people talk and do evenings out and stuff. You know, I'm going up to this show next week, and I'm probably going to know quite a few people that I haven't seen for a few years. You know, it's nice to be recognised in quite a small place where I say quite a small place. There's still thousands of people, but you know, it's quite easy to get lost in amongst that.
I see what you're saying.
You know, I know the people that matter.
Yeah, well, which is important, mate. But that is quite the spec, and they really have gone for it, because that tech of putting the tiny holes in the screens. I mean, this is literally what you get in commercial cinemas.
Yeah.
You know, so the fact they've gone for that as well, and then they can seat the speakers behind the screen.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, me being a nerd, I kind of want to see the speakers.
Yeah. I mean, I love the look of speakers. You know, I'm a big fan of nice looking speakers. I don't know if you know the brand Klipsch.
Yeah.
You know, their copper drivers are just beautiful. And I've done a couple of homes. In fact, Klipsch have just branched into the same kind of level as Cricks with their home cinema arrays. So have a look at them as well.
Gonna check them out.
These are, you know, things that sit behind the screen.
I almost feel like the reading list for this podcast needs to be provided by you, Joe. I almost feel like there's a.
I can't remember half the stuff I said. I need to look at an amplifier. I need to send you a link to the show, and then I need to send you Cricks and Klipsch.
That's the ones, man.
Cool.
I'm gonna look into them. I feel like if you know,
and Trinnov.
Yeah. And I feel like if I end up moving the end of the year and I get my sort of front room, we might have to talk, mate. You might have to come and you might have to try and do me we'll do a kind of weird, bit by bit budget.
Yeah.
Ish. Dolby
Well, that's the thing. You
mate.
can start with 2 speakers and an amp. Like that, you can literally start with a left and a right and an amp, and then you can just buy a sub, or you know, if we're going for people that want to do it on a budget, you can just buy individual bits. You could then buy a center channel. There you go. You've got your LCR there, and you might want to buy a sub. There you go.
There you got a sub. Well, I did it for years. I used to run in my last flat. No, not my last flat. My flat before that. I've moved so many times. I used that amp just with literally like 2.1. you know,
Yeah.
left, right, center, and I just
Which
plugged
is
it
a
right.
great sound. It's going to be
Yeah.
better than anything you get out
Exactly.
of the TV.
Exactly, and I just used it from a records, right? I'm still
Yeah.
big into my vinyl, right? So I still play my records, and then
Black
I've
metal.
had it. Mate, everything. I'm still into my black metal, you know. Still into I still like my black metal, but I like loads of stuff now, man. My musical taste's gone like just through the roof, really.
Yeah, same, but I think on a different tangent.
I don't know, because I know you got big into your drum and bass, didn't you, for a long time?
Yeah.
And then,
In fact, didn't you go and see Andy C?
yeah,
Was
I
that
saw
you?
Andy C.
You went and saw Andy C.
Yeah, I saw Andy C. There you go, mate. You know, I was there, XOYO. I was having a good time.
It's a good club, that, mate.
It's a really good club, mate. And then my 30th birthday, I was at a daytime rave at Fabric.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, man. It's like
Fabric's
it's
quite
like
impressive, isn't it?
Well, especially on that floor, vibrating on the floor. You know, really cool sound system. Yeah, I don't remember much of that. It's got to be said. It was like a daytime thing for my 30th. But yeah, man, I went to a Lars von Stroke gig, bit of house.
Right. Not really into house, unfortunately. I get a bit lost in the 4/4.
It didn't sort me out. It got to. I remember going up to my mate and
I said,
I think I just said, if this loop repeats one more time, I think I'm going to lose it. I just.
Well, you know what I think. You know what I think the attraction of drum and bass was. You know, both of us kind of came from a metal background. You were a bit heavier than me, but I think we both had a love for thrash. You know, Exodus and Testament and
100%.
Centrix, and you know all these bands. And there's so much energy in that, and there's so much energy in drum and bass, and I think that was what the attraction was. I think I almost had like a cut-off moment for metal at one point, but I can't remember who it was I went to see. I think I got dragged along to a Lordy gig, and I think the crowd there just pushed me over the edge. I was like, I can't deal with metal anymore. I just can't do it. The people are like, my hair's longer than yours. I've got more patches on my denim. Oh, look at my boots. They've been to the, you know, can't be bothered. But now I listen to everything now. It's crazy. But there's a lot of, you know, Slipknot, Slipknot's still one of my favorite bands, man. You know,
I can't believe, like with Joey, like that was mental when I read that. I did not think, how's he gone? You know, it's just insane. It's you know, there's a few members now. You'll know, was it the bassist a couple of years ago?
Yeah, Paul Gray. Yeah, he went.
Paul Gray
quite a long time ago.
Joey,
yeah.
You know, it's a weird thing, Joe. Like because I kind of had a.
But just on that was what I was going to say. Sorry, just before I lose the thought, mate, was just the drum and bass. So obviously with Slipknot, is you've got Sid on the deck, so they scratch quite a lot. There's a lot of drum and bass samples in Slipknot as well. So I didn't even realise, you know, I'm listening to these angsty tunes when I'm like 12, 13 years old, and it's jungle. You know, they're using jungle samples.
Yep.
And I've sent it to some of my jungle mates who, you know, I've got this guy that I just referred to as a jungle wizard. I sent him this, you know, it's a little 2-second intro at the beginning of Eyeless. And I sent it to him being like, do you know what that's from? And within like 3 minutes, he'd found the track. He'd found at what point in the track it is. And it was like, he's like, yeah, it's just this, but a bit sped up. And he found the sample. So it is, you know, there's such a big crossover there it's all about that energy. So yeah, apologies to waylay, but that was where I was going with that, was the drum and bass and the metal. That was the attraction, I guess.
Well, it makes sense, I suppose, because it's almost like it was quite interesting going into the music chat for a bit. It's quite interesting how, yeah, because when I was in London before I came to Brighton, you know, I went from sort of listening to just the radio, you know, and then I got quite into sort of rap and hip hop. You know, and then there was the whole kind of like the new metal, sort of the Limp Bizkit and the Linkin Park, you know, Nerd, which was basically using hip hop with rock, right?
Yeah.
And then when you look at the record labels, when you look at Interscope, you know, what they did was which is quite genius, really, was they approached different artists and they said, well, I tell you what, you're bossing this particular genre. So what we're going to do is we're going to start a company with you. We'll be 50-50 partners, and then we'll distribute your music, but you're going to be in here essentially producing the music. So you had, you know, Trent Reznor's label was under Interscope. So he was signing, he was obviously doing 9 Inch Nails and signing the likes of Marilyn Manson, etc., and the list goes on, right? You know, and then you had Death Row Records that were doing the hip hop stuff, and then there was Shady Records and Aftermath Records who were all kind of bits of that, and then they got Polydor in. So there was this kind of like natural, what they call in the music industry, cross-pollination of artists.
Right.
You had Eminem talking about Marilyn Manson and vice versa.
Yeah.
And it's a genius thing that they did, where they, for a long time, they almost everyone, there was a lot of tribalism as we know in those industries, right? But there was a lot of merging of those subgenres, and then of course I found extreme metal, and that was me gone for years, and that, you know.
I remember
But
your hair being
oh
down to the
mate,
back of your knees,
yeah,
Mike.
man, yeah. Skin spikes, you know, all the Norwegian scene and all that stuff. But I was the same as you, man. It
Leather
got to
trousers.
yeah, leather. I always lived in leather waistcoats. Used to go for it, mate.
Yeah, leather waistcoat, leather jacket, leather trousers, leather boots.
But yeah, everything, mate. And even in the
Yeah,
summer,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. I
But
remember those days, mate.
I was the same, mate. It got to a stage, I think, when I went to uni, and my mind just started. I was listening to like, I mean, my mate Rick, he would listen to things like Radiohead and the Verve and that sort of stuff. So it was,
I remember Rick.
you know, but like I was listening to that music at uni and like analyzing it, and I'm like, well, that's really cool. I hadn't thought of that, and then I just wasn't getting the. It was all about, you know, beer. It was about horror movies, fast metal, and like you say, like my patch jacket is better than yours. It was getting a bit like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to sort of collectivize an entire load of people because they weren't all
Absolutely.
like
that. I should have elaborated on that, saying that after now going to gigs, it is an absolute family and a full, because all the people that were
100%.
young going to gigs are now going with their families. Like, it has gone full circle, and it is a beautiful thing to see at a metal gig these days.
I completely agree,
sure.
and I think what it is, dude, is I think it's just you're growing, perhaps, and you're saying
you're
like, perhaps I don't quite fit into this now, you know, and because I've latterly I've caught up with people from the metal scene, you know, and we've had great conversations, and they've gone off and done bits and bobs and other, you know, it's all good, it's all good, mate. But I tell you what I found though, right? You like this? So when I got into doing my film scores and stuff like that, I thought, right, I need to go and see some live orchestral music. So I'm like, right, let's go to the proms, right?
Okay.
So I go. So I'm in my uniform at the proms. Yeah, I've got my suit jacket on, you know, not like nice jeans or whatever. I thought I'll go and get a glass of wine, sort of imposter, like sort of in the Royal Albert Hall, right? Drinking my wine, watching amazing piece of music. I loved it, and I was analysing the orchestra and the placement and what was going on. And I kind of thought, okay, cool. And I was on my own, so I'm like, well, what do I do now? So I'm just sitting there, like seeing whatever, listening in, basically.
Yeah.
And this guy behind me is like, oh yes, but it wasn't as good as when we saw it with you know, Sir Simon Rattle in Vienna, and with this, that, and the other. And I thought, here we go again, elitism. I've just left the metal scene, like, because I felt like it was getting a bit elitist, and now I've got this bloke waffling on to me about some other outdoing his mate about when he's, and I thought, my God, it doesn't matter. You get it everywhere. And then I remember, like, it made me laugh. Like at uni, there was guys into like dubstep.
Yeah.
And they like hated the bass. No, sorry, they hated the treble. You know, it's all about the bass. You know, and I'm like, okay, that sounds a bit like the black metalers where they're like, there is no bass. Like, it's just insane, really.
You're always going to have the naysayers. You're always going to have within the genre. You're going to have subgenres. You know, same in drum and bass. You know, you've got jump up. I hate jump up these days. I'm not a fan of it, and the crowd it attracts, probably on the most whole, are not my type of people. They're generally a lot younger than me these days. Whereas I'm more into, you know, everyone starts their journey with jump up, and everyone's kind of, not everyone, but most people will then refine their taste, as you probably did with metal, you know.
Exactly. But yeah, I would
find your niche.
Exactly, but 100% still listen.
And there's always going to be an elitist person.
There's always going to be there, mate. You know, but I still listen to metal. I still listen to a lot of rock, a lot of ambient stuff, and obviously soundtracks. But yeah, I had a really, you know, like I say, I only really went to there was another event I went to, but it escapes me. I sort of ended up there on wasn't supposed to be there kind of thing, and ended up there, so I clearly was drunk. But I had a really, from the drum and bass sort of day ravey thing that I went to at Fabric, and it's definitely at Andy C. Man, I had some great conversations with people.
Oh, yeah. Generally, people, for the good events, you get the right caliber of people coming.
No problems at all. Real good laugh.
And you don't get shit. Everyone's that drum and bass has a bit of a stigma for it, but I think that's perpetuated by, you know, these Instagram channels that are playing the most honkiest of jump up with everyone. Is everyone looking pretty rowdy? Like it's very different to if you went to a night that is just solid, good tunes all night, good hosting, good, but like it's a very different. It's 100%. You know, it's the same as anything.
100%. It's nice. It's cool, man. Like I say, I must admit, since we've come out of you know, house arrest, so to speak, you know, I've been to one gig which was with one of my old mates, Les,
Yeah.
down in Worthing, and it was packed in there. It was great to see everybody out.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
haven't been
yeah.
anywhere, mate. I
Oh,
haven't,
mate,
I haven't
I've
been
been
to
to
any
a
other
fair
concerts.
few. Yeah, I've done some good raves, and I've done some good gigs. I went to see Professor Brian Cox the other night as well.
Oh,
That
yeah,
was
nice.
that was a good one. But like, I went to see Tool. That was fantastic.
Oh, the Tool's
Um,
a band I'd like to see.
yeah, that was mind blowing. I've never seen them before,
Where
and
was that?
that was at the O2 Arena.
Nice.
And it was all seated, and it was so visual, and it was just fantastic, like, absolutely brilliant. One of the best things I've seen. And then been to a few reggae gigs.
Nice.
I went to a day rave myself. It's ideal for people of our age, Mike, isn't it? You know, it finishes at 11. It was in London. It was at Printworks. But it was the most surreal thing. You know, you're going in and there's people absolutely off their pickle, and then you go outside and it's blazing sunshine and it's 4 PM. And you go, this is crazy. People are still treating it like it's an evening event.
It's a bit of a shock to the system when you come out in the street. It's got to be said. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I was straight in the Brewdog, and then off to I can't remember, I think went somewhere in Battersea, some pub, and then off home. But yeah, it was very much yeah. If you want to sort of be in bed by sort of 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd recommend it. You have your hangover by 11 o'clock at night. You know, and you're right and ready, mate. You're up at 7 AM, ready for the day.
Yeah, I think this one was. I think it was 12 to 11, so midday till 11 in the evening. But I think because of the trains, we ended up having to leave at I don't know, 10 or something. But it beats the right. It's on. It starts at 10. It finishes at 8 in the morning, and then generally it's probably not going to get busy till midnight. And
exactly that.
The people that you want to see are playing at 3 and 4, 5 in the morning. You're like, it's an effort for me to go to a rave these days. It has to be planned in advance. I have to make sure I have sufficient time off.
Time to prepare, 100%.
Yeah, I have to get.
late.
Yeah.
No, I'm like that, mate. I'm an early, but sometimes I'm in bed at 10.
Yeah.
It's but then I get up early and I get stuff done. You know what I mean? But real talk. Now we've touched on this because this is one thing. In terms of the Brighton music scene, when I was down there, it was very, very diverse. You had a good range of sort of metal-y rocky clubs, gothy clubs. You had the Volks, which I don't know if still there, which was doing.
Volks is going strong, my friend.
It's going strong.
Volks is going very strong. It's lovely.
Coalition. You had the What's the other? What was the main one down the bottom there? Digital, which then was Life, right?
No, Digital became the Arch.
The Concord 2, is that still there?
Concord 2 is still there.
So what's the main, like, so if me and you were going to go to a drum and bass night tonight, it'd be the Volks.
Volks, mate, all day. I've got two dates booked in for the Volks coming up. I've got one on the 23rd, where I've got D-Bridge and Skeptical playing 3 hours back to back. Seeing D-Bridge in the Volks, I think last time he was there was probably 10 years ago. So he is a big name to have in such a small club. And they've just got this. Well, it's probably like double the size of when you last went there, and then they've got a massive smoking area. Yeah, they went into next door and they've got a cafe in the day, but it's just a bigger space. But they've just got a new RC1 sound system, which is a fully active, instead of like separate amps and everything. They have a fully active new rig in there, which means it's got some clever digital processing in it. That means the MC can stand in front of the speaker and you don't get any feedback issues.
Amazing.
And the sound is absolutely phenomenal. And it also eliminates, if you blow an amp when you're in a club and you've got everything hooked up to that is a ball ache to fix or replace in the middle of a show. Whereas if you've got one thing that fails, if you have one amp that fails, it's only going to be one speaker. So it just carries on. Like it's really nice. So yeah, come down the Volks sometime, Mike.
Mate, I'll book you in, mate. I'll book you in. We need to do a. Yeah, I'm up for that. 100%.
There's another one on the 15th of October, which is a critical night, which is also should be a good one.
I'm up for it, mate. I'll come down. I'll come down, mate. I'll be on my best behaviour. I'm retired now.
Yeah. I remember those times when your old man used to go away for a couple of
weekends. Yeah. Boys. Yeah, it was a good old
basically
laugh,
live at yours. I do remember though, Mike, back in the day. Do you remember when Takis used to say, it's much better if you roll a cigarette with 2 papers. It burns a lot slower. And we were like, yeah, man, yeah, for sure. and then looking back at it, going, "What was good?
What was he talking about?
What,
Yeah, what was he
what
talking
were we
about?
doing?"
Yeah. Look, man, it was
Falling asleep to black metal videos, black metal
yeah,
DVDs.
black metal DVDs, black metal videos, like no sleep. I remember there just being no sleep.
Yeah, for like a week.
Forever, you know.
Forever, it was eternal.
You know, but everyone still got up and went to work.
Yeah, we all went to work, and then we'd end up meeting at the pull and pump,
Bit of pull and
then
pump,
go get a Subway.
Yep, and then crack on. Yeah. It was good fun. It was good fun, mate. It really was. I must admit, being back in Brighton a couple of days ago, you know, just seeing the boys and sort of walking around and sort of seeing it has changed a lot, but certain parts of it are still exactly the same.
Yeah.
You know, now we're going to go into Brighton conversations, you know, but like, you know, where was I? The Fountainhead, Wagon and Horses, Fitzherbert's. I was in the.
I think Fitzherbert's still there. Wagon and Horses.
Wagon and Horses. I was in.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember where. My mind's blank after that.
Smugglers. Did you ever go Smugglers?
Colonnades. I went in.
Oh, the Colonnade. Yeah, Dan
Got off
of
it
the Colonnade.
yeah, he was in there. I spoke to Dan in there.
Oh, was it? Of course he was. Of course. 20 years later, and he's still sitting in the Colonnade.
And I'm like, my God, it's Dan there. He's just got to be. I said hello to him. He recognised me, believe it or not. I mean, I look nothing like back in the day.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of a chat. Yeah, Dan was in there in the Colonnades having a couple of Guinnesses. He did make me laugh.
Oh, he's a top bloke, Dan.
He
he's
is,
such
mate.
a lovely man. Oh, Pinball Dan.
He is, mate. I love him, mate. I love him, man. I love him. Well, dude, mate, that's probably a decent place to leave it before we just get into like anecdotal kind of like. Do you remember when that happened?
Yeah.
All the guys are like, what are these two guys now talking about? Sort of going down memory lane, a couple of old sods.
We'll carry on after.
Absolutely, mate. Any final obviously anything you send me or anything when I look through and edit it, I'll link stuff so people have got references to what we're talking about. But any kind of final points on the conversation today?
Put me on the spot now. No, it's just good fun. It is really good fun. I love watching a cinema come together. I love the installation of it, the tweaking of it, you know, calibrating a little cinema room. Admittedly, you can spend thousands of pounds on professional calibration, but you know, the level that I'm at, it is really fun to make tweaks and adjustments and hear the difference. I mean, and actually, you know, critiquing your own work and going, no, I can make that sound better, or you know, I've put too much bass in there. Realistically, I need to take some of that out. As much as it sounds bloody good, you've got to be real with this stuff. Yeah, no, not really, Mike. Sorry.
No, it's perfect. That's a nice, you know, Joe being a drum and bass head nowadays. Yeah, you know, if you'd have to go and make sure that you've turned the bass down a little bit. Yeah, it's got the Joe edge now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what a lot of people do as well. Is, you know, they'll crank the bass for a demo just to give the you know, otherworldly gut rumble under your seat.
And then let's turn it down a little bit so you can actually hear the film and you're not just like gonna have to replace your seat in 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool, man. Thanks very much, Joe, man. I really appreciate you taking the time
to
talk to me tonight, dude.
Yeah, mate.
No worries, mate. We'll do this again, man. We'll do this again when we got like, I don't know, 8, 16K and 25, 10, 16, yeah?
Yeah, bloody hell.
Wicked, man. Thanks again, dude, yeah?
Nice one, Mike.
Take care, fella. See you later, mate. Bye.